Hello everyone, this is Braden Kelly of blogginginnovation.com here with Eric Liu, author of the new book, Imagination First. So Eric, just wanted to take the time to ask you a few questions about the book and about innovation in general.
Yeah.
First question, are some people imaginative and others not?
First of all, thank you for having this conversation. This is really fun. Are some people imaginative and some people not? Fundamentally, the answer is no. Everybody has a capacity for imagination. Imagination is simply the ability to conceive of what is not. Now, many people have blocked that capacity. Many people have fallen out of use and practice of that capacity, but we all have it. We're all born with it, and with cultivation, we can all develop it and grow it. And so, you know, the differences between people you think of as imaginative and people you think of as not is not the difference between some who got sprinkled with fairy dust and some who didn't, right? It's just a matter of who cultivated it and who's had it cultivated for them by their teachers, their mentors, their peers, their surroundings. And that's really the spirit of this book, is that imagination is teachable, it is growable, and that it's necessary to do that.
Well, it's definitely something that's very important for everyone to have, especially as we generate an economy that's more based around imagination and innovation. And that's one of the things we talk about on the blog. Taking that a bit further and talking about your book, tell me about an epidemic of imagination and what that is.
Well, and I think it's important to define terms a moment here because, you know, blogging innovation is about innovation, right? And one of the things that my co-author and I, Scott Brandon, who runs the Lincoln Center Institute in New York, we were really wanting to take care to distinguish terms that are often used interchangeably. And so in our view, we have this kind of three-segment pipeline that goes on in our hearts and our heads every day. It starts with imagination first, just literally this capacity to conceive of what is not. Imagination applied is creativity. Right? Taking that willingness or that kind of spark and doing something with it, whether it's drawing a picture or making something or launching a blog or whatever it may be, that's creativity. That subset of creative acts that somehow advance the form of art, advance the form of blogging, whatever it is, that's innovation. Right? And I think one of the challenges we have in our society right now is that we as Americans are always on the hunt for innovation now. And we want instant innovation. And wishing for instant innovation is like wishing for the fruit to appear without the seed. And I think it's really important that we, as a society and a culture, take time to cultivate, plant, water that seed. Your question was about an epidemic of imagination. And this is one of the metaphors that Scott and I use throughout the book. That imagination, like so many capacities, innate human capacities, is contagious, right? And that it's important to think about this. If you use epidemiological terms and think about, you know, we stand here now kind of at the tail end of the national H1N1 swine flu scare, right? But you remember what were people telling us to do during that scare? They were saying, you know, they were paying attention to both, like, who in the community is a super carrier of this virus, right? People who are showing up at events and shaking a lot of hands and touching a lot of people and all that. And so they said, okay, well, the super carriers need to be taken out of the network. They focused on small habits like coughing into your arm and your sleeve and making sure you wash your hands in Purell obsessively, right? They were taking care to make sure that people nip things early. If you felt even the vaguest sign or symptom, remove yourself from the network, right? Now flip this around. Just imagine for a moment that the virus we're talking about isn't H1N1, but the virus is imagination. The virus is this willingness to go there and play and conceive of new ideas and new approaches, right? And now think about it as if you weren't trying to contain the virus, but to accelerate its spread, right? The same structural network factors come right into play. Who are the super carriers, right? But now you want to find them and identify them, people like you, Braden, and send them out into the world, right? Get them out there and really get them circulating. What are the little habits that we all have? The equivalent of coughing into your sleeve or washing your hands, the little habits that actually speed the transmission of imagination. They're habits of how you talk to people in meetings. They're habits of saying yes and instead of no, right? Ways that kind of keep possibility open rather than shutting it down. And then it's also about kind of taking a bird's eye view of the whole network. Whether your network is your family or your house of worship or your organization, your company, your neighborhood group, whatever it is, everything is networked. And if you study the map of your network, you can think about how strategically you can make imagination contagious.
Well, I think that's a very key thing, to define the concepts, and I like the way that you differentiate between imagination, creativity, and innovation, because oftentimes people do get confused when you start talking about innovation. And one of the things that I focus on is differentiating between innovation and insight, and the insight and execution ultimately are what drive business success, and that you can't have innovation if you're not doing both of those things.
Those are the component parts.
And I think that imagination and spreading that throughout the organization will help organizations be more successful and also more enjoyable places to be. So third question, moving forward, is when it comes to innovation, what is the biggest challenge you see organizations facing?
I think there are too many organizations that are structured around fear, that are structured out of a fear of failure. And that's how a meeting is run. That's how organizations are developed. That's how turf is kind of divvied up. People operate too much in organizational life out of a fear of failure, a fear of being exposed for not knowing what you're talking about, a fear of, you name it, a whole host of fears. And this is just personal human behavior and psychology, but it plays out in organizational settings as well. And when you have cultures that are oriented toward the avoidance of something bad, you stifle imagination, right? You kill imagination. And there are so many organizations that, though they may have in their tagline or even the spirit of their products and services the idea of innovation, when you actually go and spend time at these places and watch how they're working, they're not optimizing for possibility. They're optimizing for the avoidance of risk. They're optimizing for conformity. They're optimizing for a minimization of exposure. This isn't just about bureaucracy. This can happen in small teams and small networks too, but it's about a mindset.
Definitely. So this has been Braden Kelly with blogginginnovation.com and Eric Liu of Imagination First.